The View hosts have got themselves into hot water again after they did the very thing they purport to be against, undermining women's success. Joy Behar stunned viewers when she said Donald Trump's press secretary, 27-year-old Karoline Leavitt, only secured her position because of her good looks.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
The comment was bizarre, especially coming from Joy Behar, who is as woke as they come and positions herself as a champion of feminism. This online commentator said, disgusting Joy Behar of The View accuses Karoline Leavitt of being hired only because Donald Trump thought she was a 10.
The aftermath of The View's latest controversy serves as yet another stark reminder of what happens when the show's hosts underestimate their guests. This time, the spotlight fell on Karoline Leavitt, a young and unapologetically conservative political strategist who has been making waves in the media. The clash erupted when Joy Behar, with her signature smugness, dismissed Leavitt as unqualified and implied that her rise to prominence was merely due to her appearance. However, it quickly became evident that The View had once again ventured into territory they weren't prepared to defend. But here's the catch. Leavitt wasn't about to let this insult go unchecked. Rather than backing down in the face of Behar's condescension, she hit back with full force, effortlessly dismantling Behar's remarks and exposing the glaring hypocrisy behind the so-called feminist narrative that The View claims to champion.
Against political opponents, let's talk about the fact that Democrats have been labeling President Trump a threat to democracy for the better half of 10 years. Let's talk about how they have compared him to Hitler, one of the worst mass murderers in the history of the world, and that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden weaponized the court system and the justice system in this country against Donald Trump in an attempt to imprison him. He sat through a courthouse for 7 weeks this past year, and the Democrats were hoping he would go to jail for it. That is real political violence that has led to 2 heinous assassination attempts on President Trump's life that, by the grace of God, he was able to escape, and he is here with us today. So yes, President Trump knows a little bit about political violence because he's experienced it himself. And talking about the tragic realities of war that Liz Cheney and her father, Dick Cheney, have got this country into is not political violence. It's talking about the reality of the foreign conflicts that the Washington, D.C. establishment have sold out young Americans to for decades.
What made this moment truly impactful was that Leavitt didn't just take the high road. She seized the opportunity to push back, doing so with intelligence, poise, and, most importantly, solid facts. Right from the outset, Leavitt made it clear that her achievements had nothing to do with her appearance, but were instead the result of years of dedication, sharp political insight, and a talent for effective communication. These very qualities made her a formidable opponent to The View's panel of out-of-touch, self-proclaimed intellectuals. Leavitt didn't just ignore Behar's insult. She called out the sheer absurdity of reducing a woman's entire career to her looks, especially coming from a show that constantly claims to champion female empowerment. The hypocrisy was undeniable. How could The View advocate for women's advancement while simultaneously undermining a successful woman simply because she didn't conform to their left-wing ideology?
Life. His opponents reached out to him and said they do not accept political violence. That has been a key difference. I do want to play you.
No, please. His opponents are saying to this very day the same rhetoric that led to those 2 assassination attempts. The second attempted assassin on President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that President Trump is a threat to democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie. And yes, you will take political violence like we have seen in 2 instances against President Trump. Last week, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was a Nazi. That's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I am so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump and saying that he is sowing division in this country. He is not. The media is for pushing hoaxes like the one that you all pushed today, and the Democrat Party is for pushing lies about him. But the good news is Americans don't buy it. And that's why today in 2024, President Trump is more popular than he has been since 2016 because people don't trust the media.
Let's be clear, this wasn't just an offhand remark from Behar. It was part of a much broader and deeply concerning pattern that The View has long followed when dealing with conservative women in politics. Whether it's Kayleigh McEnany, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, or Elise Stefanik, the media, The View included, has a habit of trying to discredit any young, articulate conservative woman who rises to prominence. Bahar and her co-hosts likely assumed they could throw out a lazy, sexist jab without facing any pushback. But this time, they miscalculated. Leavitt didn't just highlight the blatant double standard. She made sure to remind Bahar and the panel that her success wasn't handed to her. She earned it. Unlike the hosts of The View, who have built their careers catering to an insulated audience that agrees with them, Leavitt fought her way up in the ruthless world of politics, facing real scrutiny and intense competition at every turn. While The View's hosts sit around gossiping and tossing cheap insults, Leavitt is out there actively shaping political discourse and making a real impact. And she made that fact crystal clear, with quiet confidence and a sharp, no-nonsense delivery. The moment instantly went viral, sparking an outpouring of support for Leavitt across social media. Clips of her shutting down Bahar's dismissive remarks flooded the internet, resonating with people from across the political spectrum.
I had something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Mm-hmm. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason, because black people couldn't get into colleges.
The hypocrisy was impossible to ignore. The View claims to champion strong, independent women, but only if they align with the show's liberal ideology. The moment a woman dares to think differently, she's dismissed as nothing more than a pretty face, undeserving of a seat at the table. Leavitt's response was a powerful reminder of this blatant double standard. And if things weren't already bad enough for The View, their attempt to humiliate her completely backfired. Bahar's snide remark didn't just come across as mean-spirited, it exposed a deep insecurity within the panel itself. Instead of debating Leavitt on her actual views, they resorted to petty personal jabs. Rather than challenging her on policy or political insight, they fixated on her appearance. It was a textbook example of projection. Instead of acknowledging that a young conservative woman had earned her place in politics through hard work and merit, they twisted the narrative to fit their own ideological bubble.
Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world. So please stop using that phrase and talk about, because you don't understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You're saying about yourself that, hey, that's a terrible thing to be. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's what we were fighting for, so that you could stand in that podium, so that Catherine Jean-Pierre could stand at that podium. So women of all kinds of colors and ilks, wherever they came from, whatever their belief system was, they had the opportunity to bust out.
Inside sources at ABC soon revealed that the backlash was far worse than expected. Executives, already frustrated with the show's never-ending cycle of controversies, saw this latest incident as yet another PR nightmare. One insider even suggested that some higher-ups were beginning to question whether Bahar, who has been a fixture on the show for decades, was now doing more harm than good. Sure, The View thrives on heated debates and pushing boundaries, but there's a fine line between being provocative and being outright problematic. This moment clearly crossed that line, and the network could no longer ignore it. But here's the real twist. Leavitt didn't play the victim. She didn't complain or seek sympathy. Instead, she used the moment to prove exactly why she belongs in the conversation. She didn't stoop to their level. She simply stood her ground, maintained her composure, and let the facts do the talking. It was a masterclass in handling the kind of attacks that have unraveled many before her. And in doing so, Leavitt demonstrated that while The View may thrive on controversy, there is no replacement for real substance. This was a defining moment that reminded everyone watching that true strength isn't about tearing others down. It's about standing tall, no matter the opposition. And in this case, Leavitt showed just how much damage The View inflicted on itself with its own petty and unnecessary attack.